Welcome back to another Stacked Podcast. I'm here with Deepak and we are talking all things sort of people, culture, HR, talent, everything about the way that your team works together. Deepak, nice to meet you, mate.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, we were having a little chat at a recent event that we were both at for maybe 2 minutes or something when I worked in a bit early and had no one to talk to.
Me too.
And then we instantly started bouncing off sort of me from a brand element, from a content element, and then you coming from more that people and culture sort of place. So tell us a little bit about your background, what you do.
Yeah. So at the moment, I think I am the poster child of a portfolio career, most simply. And I know we'll probably talk about that more. So I do a few things and I love doing these few things. So first and foremost, I've run my own HR consultancy, most simply in the early stage business space called Mission and Rhythm. Focus on two things really. Firstly, it's what I call push the red button when shit hits the fan. Who do you call in? Almost like the Ghostbusters, but hopefully not dealing with ghosts or anything like that. And what I call turning your data and insights into action and meaningful action. So what matters to the business. Alongside that, I have co-founded a business alongside Megan Luttrell, who's a superstar, called PeopleStack, and that is an accelerator focused on building those initial HR and recruitment skills for founder-led businesses when you don't have that expertise in-house. So you don't wait for your culture to break. You can, get things moving in the right direction. I've recently joined Grapevine as a winemaker, and the best way to describe what we do as at Grapevine is give a voice to those who don't necessarily always have a voice, especially in tech. And I haven't announced this yet, but I've also just taken up a role with REA Group to help shift and move their culture and DEI practices to something a lot more scalable and what we could call something that we can codify. So a few balls in the air.
I haven't heard about that one at all. That's fantastic, man.
Cheers. Thank you. But love it. Love what I do.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's touch on the portfolio side of things to start with, right? Because I think it is coming up more and more. I'm starting to wonder if some of the things that I do as portfolio career, and I actually think that the concept is almost a little broader than it's being used. I mean, there's a portfolio career in the sense of what you've just described, managing 3 or 4 roles at once. But I think in so many roles and so many businesses, when we're thinking about the different responsibilities and tasks we have, the different hats that we wear, both at a job, outside of a job, side hustles, hobbies, all of that sort of thing, like this idea of having a split focus maybe is becoming a little bit more in vogue and a little bit more accepted. Is that sort of something you're seeing in the HR space?
I think so. Like it's a mix. Like let's not pretend times out there aren't tough for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a lot of juggling. Sometimes people are taking 2, 3 jobs on to make ends meet, and I fully recognize that. But I think a portfolio career is maybe a step alongside that. So yes, if I didn't have to do so many things, I may not. I don't know. But at the same time, I love what I do, and what brings it all together. Yes, there's different focuses, but there's a really common through line. And so that way I'm not trying to be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm focusing on what makes me great and maybe carving out a niche. And, within my businesses, I use a certain mission, and it's a personal mission where I try to drive great outcomes and great experiences for our business and community through great outcomes and experiences for our people. And that's my through line in all my work. And that's what connects it, but keeps me engaged, but also helps me to sort of even set boundaries.
Yeah. So I think that's really important. And both from people exploring a portfolio style career, but also anyone going to a job interview, anyone working their way up through a particular business, anyone out in the freelance world, students, all of that sort of thing, that concept of going, what is that core sort of through line, as you put it, that why, that purpose, what's that thing that sort of drives you that you come back to, that links the different stuff that you're doing, but also that you can articulate in a way that keeps you having conversations about things that you're passionate about. And so on my side, that storytelling, right, and the idea of crafting stories, training storytellers, bringing stories to life through design, video, podcasts, all of that sort of stuff. But that needs to be expressed through every business I'm involved with.
Yeah.
but also every project that we sort of work on. I like that you've articulated that sort of, I mean, it goes twofold, right? It's one, how we find opportunities. It's the other, how we set boundaries and decide what we should be saying no to.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also that, what makes us great? Let's try to recognize that. Yeah. And it's hard in a personal point of view. Most of us find that quite hard and don't want to do that or avoid doing that. Like, self-promotion is quite hard. And that idea of storytelling is really important because, once again, I can't be everything to everyone and I don't want to be that. So what am I great at and what do I double down on and tell that story about?
Yeah.
And from that, that's when people come to me and vice versa. I have those opportunities to go to people as well. And so for me, that's that, back to that through line and that storytelling idea. It's important to have a message and drive that message. And you can do that in different ways.
Yeah, and consistency, clarity, both for your audience, so that other people remember you for the right reasons, for the things that you want to be remembered for.
Yeah.
But also so that you remember it yourself, like it's when you have a tough day at the end of the day or, a really long day of Zoom calls or whatever it is, and you do that big sigh at the end of the day and you can just remember, but I'm chasing the thing that I love to do, and it all comes back to a reason, and a purpose there.
We spend so much time in our work and what we're doing that we better love it.
Yeah.
And if we don't, what do we need to change so we can? And, we go through moments in careers and life, things like that. Not everything's great and it's hard and sometimes you're just grinding. But without a purpose, you're just, banging your head against a wall.
Yeah. And I think to take that, and guilty of this myself in the branding space, right? The idea of purpose and mission and, those words are thrown around so much and sometimes they get too big and they get too ethereal and you have purposes of, or missions of I'm going to help 1 million people, something. Yep. Look, there's value in all of those things. But I think to sort of bring that back to be a little introspective and understand that if you have a line, if you align through and a purpose and a little message to yourself that you really think is the thing that you provide value for, that is valuable in the world, it can be really simple like that. Yeah. So I like on your end, it was the word experience that jumped out at me when we first talked about this.
Yeah.
Because experience wasn't a word that I'd heard used a lot and maybe not enough.
Yeah.
There is so much, post-COVID, and we've got hybrid workplaces and we've got team, everyone is doing so many things remote right now. It's quite novel for us to be saying we're recording this, right? So thank you for coming our way. But increasingly it makes this idea of connection and this idea of like what the human experience is, something that I think we've lost or at least is being redefined. So when you're talking about experience in the people and culture space, like how do you define it?
Yeah. Firstly, experience, the best way I can put it is it's that emotional residue that lasts long after it happened. Whether we think of, whether it's family, marriage, birth, siblings, something great, something awful, a new job, a great meal. It's an experience. It might be from years ago, but we remember that emotional residue, how it made us feel. So I think that's really important. And if you think of that people, culture, HR space, that's this space that we're in, or I'm in, is going through a huge revolution. Going from that HR, that policy, procedure, policing, whatever else it is that I was the first person to roll my eyes at when it was my own team driving these messages.
Yeah.
So that doesn't have impacts, to moving to that sort of people and culture sort of focus, but then moving more into that people experience idea and very closely aligned with customer experience. But then, take it one step further, like experience is like I said, that residue. But when I talk about people experience, I'd rather say it in the plural, people experiences, because it's not one thing. And as you sort of mentioned that point about consistency, different messaging, different forms of content, whether it is, the town hall or the conversation you have one-on-one, that genuine care, all of that is part of those experiences. And when you talk about people experiences, I try to focus on that plural because it's not one thing, it's a sum of many things that creates those experiences, but in turn that culture.
Yeah, okay, so that's interesting. Because I was thinking about experience as this sort of holistic how would you describe your experience at the workplace in one sentence, sort of thing? And there's a value to that, but that is made up of, as you say, all these individual little touch points and moments in time. I love the concept of emotional residue as well, right? So what sticks, essentially, right? It's what sticks from those little moments that when you build them together is the way that you define and conceive of the culture that you work in and that sort of space, which, which is your internal brand, your internal team, all that sort of stuff. Do you have, like, what led you to here? Were there a couple of, really key experiences and moments that changed the way you perceive these things?
Well, I fell into this, people experience career from a career in hospitality, in 5-star hospitality hotels in particular.
Wow.
And loved it. Loved the craziness, love just thinking on your feet, but also, it's shift work. It's an absolute lack of pay and no life outside of that life, which at the time is great, but it's not very sustainable. But what I actually drilled down and maybe didn't realize at the time, what I loved most about that is solving problems through people. And I was lucky enough, I had a brilliant chief people officer, head of HR at the time, and I had a chance to talk to her when I'm looking for a change, thoughts, and I loved a lot of that, solving problems through people, and especially within my own team. So went back and actually decided to finish something and study and finish something, and worked in startups, worked in corporate, worked in a few roles that I absolutely hated. Once again, those process, policy, policing, and that idea of we have to be this and not that. But having come from that customer background, it's saying, hang on, it all links. Your people experience and your customer experience aren't separate boxes. They all interlink. They're basically the same journey, and you can map them out together. And that's where something exciting started to click and things started to happen. Like if you think of your customer journey and your people journey, it's quite the same thing. Like there's advertising and making sure you advertise and send that message to the right customer so you pull them in.
Yeah.
It's not, going through a job ad that's, 10 pages long. That's not attracting people. You don't do that to your customers, so why do you do that to your people? Then things like onboarding, creating a great experience for those people who even don't become a customer or a team member so that they remember you and think, okay, I didn't get the job that time, but I'm going to try again versus, hang on, I applied, I went through 2 rounds of interview, now I'm ghosted. And then not just going beyond that onboarding, but once they're there, what do you do with your people or your customers?
Yeah.
How do you, upgrade not just your people, but upgrade your customers so they can become more valuable customers? All the way to even offboarding. You can create great experiences. And the good thing is if you map them together, they are very similar stories, but you link them. So when your people come on board, they also understand how they affect the customer. And, if you look at employee engagement and customer engagement, those lines correlate very closely.
Yeah.
So when we know that if your people are happier and more engaged, then your customers are. But the data shows that, everything we see sees that, but we try to pull away from that. And we're going through, a time maybe in life, or maybe I'm just more aware, or more of us more aware, that we seem to have a lot of binary views shoved down us. We have to do this, not that.
Yeah.
Let's forget that. We can do both. We can do it all. It doesn't have to be one box or the other, And let's bring those Venn diagrams and those sort of in-between things a lot closer together where we can do a little bit of it all and create great experiences for everyone, where everyone wins and walks away to say, hey, this is a great relationship.
Yeah, I love the idea that we're all part of the same story.
Yeah.
So any product, any business is about sort of building a story and usually inviting a customer to be the hero of that story and taking them through the journey. But referencing hospitality is a really it's a clear way to look at it, right? Like my mind goes straight to sort of front of house, back of house, all these sort of things, and it's to go, look, if we think about the experience of a customer in a restaurant, in a hotel, or something like that, there are all these little touch points where we're making an impression. It's what they see when they walk in. It's the way that the table is set. It's how they're greeted. It's what music's playing. It's what the lighting looks like, as well as the food, which is the produce, the way it was cooked, the way it's presented, the way it's plated, all of these things combined together. These are the little experiences that we're talking about that combine to make the overall impression of the restaurant, of the venue, which is going to be when they go and speak to their friends, how they're going to speak about it. It's all these little experiences that combine to give that emotional residue of what is the feeling we have of that place. And the only way that comes through really genuinely, I think you can fudge some of this stuff and you can get some of the way sometimes, but if you want to consistently build a reputation with every customer that comes in, then every one of your staff members needs to understand that they're part of the story, what story they're part of, and how their role contributes to it and how they can, so there's that lens from how it's all of our responsibility to help tell the story to our customers and clients. But then I like what you're tapping into, the layer back from that is for us to be our best selves in doing that, we've got to embrace being a character in that story, which means that we have to be looked after in the same way.
I love that. I love that character in the story, and we are playing a role. We don't have to be untrue to ourselves in that role, but we are playing a role. So let's recognize it and have fun with it. As you said, these experiences, they're all messages we're sending. In a maybe a more simple form, it's forms of content. Like if I think back to hotels where I was, we had a signature scent. We were one of the first establishments, not just a hotel, but even a retailer, to have a signature scent.
Oh, I love that. I remember working on a couple of brands that got the fun to do a signature scent. And that, the first time I heard of it, I'm like, whoa, have we jumped the shark here, right? But it's just so, it's going so full circle to really embrace the idea that it's any part of the experience that we can influence. So that we can frame ourselves in the story that we want to frame it, the better. But
and it's about intention as well. It's about intention. Yes, you can sometimes fudge it, fluke it, work it out as we go. But at the same time, we have to be intentional. Because it's about replicability and scalability, and not doing the same thing 5 times over just to get the same outcome. Can we do it twice over and find a way to replicate it so that the message still gets across?
I think that's great. So let's talk more about that for a second, right? Because I think the words like authenticity and being genuine and things like that, they're very appealing. Everyone wants to have those, but they're also, if you get down to the crux of the definition of a lot of those things, it's sort of quote unquote being yourself, right? And if we have a team of a whole bunch of people all just being themselves with no guidance, nothing, no umbrella sort of bringing them all together, then when someone leaves, the experience is completely going to change for that area, and where it's not scalable, it's too reliable on individuals pulling the weight and individual personalities like holding space in different places like that. So the idea of scalability and taking, making culture scalable sort of thing, which feels, as I say it out loud, it feels like it's taking the human element out of that maybe. So how do you get around that? How can you scale culture while still keeping it human and relatable and personal?
You put me on the spot with this one, but I think most simply, we want people to be themselves, but be themselves aligned around a purpose. Because we are there to achieve something, whether in our workplaces or something else. We're in a team. We're there to achieve something. So there's a purpose. So being really clear about that purpose, aligning on it, using that combination of trust and control. There has to be some sort of guardrails. This is the direction we need to go in. So everyone starts aligning with that direction, and then sometimes simplifying it. Like if I think in this people experience space, to get that alignment, sometimes something as simple as a solid one-on-one process where we're constantly aligning. What are we going to do? How are we going to get there? How are we actually going? Can make sure we're all moving the same way. But at the same time, when we're aligned on what we need to do, we can let people do it in their way. And so you have that best of both.
Okay. So it's so I like that. And then that element of trust, the balance of trust and control, as you said, right? So we don't want to set up frameworks that have so much control that people don't feel like they have the freedom to be themselves and to think creatively and laterally and all that sort of stuff and bring their own ideas to the workplace. By that same token, it's not the complete opposite where it's just a blank slate and there's no guidance and no direction, because then people feel like, well, what are they contributing? They don't feel a sense of growth or movement in the right direction for themselves.
Well, everyone's going in 5 different directions. You're busy, but as a team, you're not going there where you need to go. One person's sort of going that way, one's going that way. Unless you all pull together, you're not going to get there. And then everyone gets frustrated. Everyone's busy. And that's where, you have those things like burnout becomes more prevalent, because you're working hard, but then you're having to work twice as hard to achieve what you need to do. So, like it is a balance. Like, control can also be what you can control the messaging, that purpose. Once again, the content in a way, you can control that so people know what we need to do. And that's where the trust comes in to play and have some fun and enjoy that and achieve those goals. Because just as importantly, we better enjoy what we do. That's where creativity comes out. We support each other. And, being a team, that's what you do. You've got your piece of the pie, you own it, you kick ass in it. But every once in a while, you may fall, you may not get there, you may fail. But that's where the team comes in. And, in a team environment, you only win as a team.
Yeah.
It's not that one person who scored the goal, but if the team gets, loses by 3, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but we all need to be kicking towards the same direction, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I like the way you sort of articulated there. So what came to mind for me was what we're controlling. We're not trying to control people. We're trying to control the direction and control the message.
Yeah, and that narrative.
Yeah, and control the narrative, right? So this is where we want to grow as a team, as business, as a group, right? And we are hiring people that we think can help us get us there.
Yeah.
And we need to very clearly communicate, both in our job ads and our interviews before we make the hire, as well as through the onboarding and then consistently when we're checking in. We need to communicate, well, this is the direction, this is the message, this is the purpose, this is how we want to be known, and this is how you can contribute. And then the trust element, once we've controlled the narrative and the direction, people have the freedom and we can trust them to bring their best selves and their best ideas to the table, because we've shown them the goal and we've told them that we believe in them to help us get there.
Yeah.
But then we're going to let them drive the ship, right?
Yeah. And, that's where that trust becomes that powerful factor in positive change, where people have that trust. You've got that psychological safety. You've got that ability to experiment and sometimes go outside the guardrails. You say, this is the guardrails because this is what we need to go, but we know where we can bend the rules.
Yeah.
Hopefully without doing anything wrong, illegal, that hurts someone. And that's, once again, that trust and control balance. But by sometimes breaking the rules, we create something even better. And that's where the fun begins. And that's where, this whole idea of people experiences comes through. And not to say this is my idea, but it's linking it all together. This is breaking the rules on traditional HR and the way things are done. This is about great business outcomes. And, I think if, putting my own people hat on, it's, the ideas of engagement for engagement's sake or diversity for diversity's sake doesn't hold power, doesn't hold strength, and doesn't send a message that connects with everyone. And that's what's really important. So what we need to do is connect that to what matters, not just the business, but those in it. And whether it's internally or even externally. So to our customers, we send a message that connects with them to pull them in. It's exactly the same thing that what we're doing internally here.
Yeah. Okay. So let's double click on a couple of those things that you said there, which come up all the time when I have conversations with people around employer brand and internal messaging. So first one you said was engagement. Yeah. Right. How do we keep our team engaged with each other and engaged with the work? And I like that you went into that to say, look, engagement for engagement's sake, is useless, is hollow. So why should we? What is the purpose of engagement? Like how should we carry that message through?
Well, it's I could probably go on 5 different tangents. But yes, engagement and happiness are different things. And I've worked in places where this focus on engagement is not about happiness, but once again, why do we have to keep things in different boxes? People can be engaged and happy, and yes, sometimes that changes as well, and that's okay. Everything in life flexes. But why engagement is really important, and firstly is that, customer engagement, employee engagement, hand in hand, part of the same story again. So you can't have one or the other without the other. You might have it for short terms and short bursts, but that's not sustainable work. We've got to be smart as individuals, but also as business. We want sustainability. We don't want our business to burn out in 2 years. We don't want our people to burn out in 2 years.
And are you seeing engagement in that sense? Are we just talking like attention and interaction?
Beyond that, like engagement is once again a bit of everything. How you feel, how others make you feel, how you interact, how comfortable you are to question, how clear you are on what you need to do. Every single piece is part of what keeps you engaged and sometimes disengaged. And hence, it's not a static thing. And that's really important, whether it's culture, engagement, experience, it's not a static thing. It's a sum of so many moving parts. It's a relationship in the end.
Yeah.
And like every relationship, every interaction can affect that.
Yeah, I'm hearing sort of a presentness in what you're saying there, right? Like to say that I'm picturing some of those people who've been part of the same organization for 15 years and they've gotten really quote unquote good at what they do in the sense that they've done it so many times that the grunt work doesn't really take them that much effort anymore.
Yeah.
So are they engaged in the sense that they're getting their work done? Maybe, but they might not be engaged with, the broader mission of the business or how the team's growing. And what they're certainly not doing is ever thinking beyond the direct task in front of them. And if we've got staff and team members who are doing that, who are just doing the bare minimum to get through the workday, that is not a business set up for sustainable growth. That's a business that is going to stagnate.
Yep.
And that then has this big danger of if a few people leave and fall off the cliff suddenly, they're gonna take that expertise with them and we're gonna be in trouble.
And you're so reliant on those one or two people who are driving that change. And yes, I get in any team, not everyone is there to score a goal or the equivalent of. But I think what's really important and what we're almost forgetting in today's world is the key skills and skills really, because we have to work on them. Flexibility and adaptability is what's going to take us forward as individuals, but also as businesses. I know we love saying back in COVID and COVID this, but flexibility was what got us through COVID. Yes, it was tough, but at the same time, being able to flex, go from predominantly on-site work to off-site work, working from home almost overnight. Look at the advent of AI. Being able to flex and adapt is what's getting us through this as well and helping us learn. At the same time, there's going to be more and more change. We live in this crazy world, whether it's, Trump's or this or whatever it is else it is. We live in a crazy world. So what's really important is we keep doubling down on those muscles of flexibility and adaptability. And, I think in the workplace as well, we're seeing pulling away from that, or pushing away from that is probably a better way, where there's a lot more control. We see some of the big businesses saying, you have to be in 5 days a week. I've worked with businesses where they check your swipe card to make sure you meet the quota of being in the office. And at the same time you go in the office, there's no connection. Everyone's got their headphones on. They're doing their individual Zoom calls, or they're creating all these, Google slide dashboards. Like, how many effing dashboards can we create? Who's actually doing the work or doing something that pushes things further? Who's actually speaking to the customers? Who's actually sharing what's working, what's not? But before I lose my voice, but I think back to your point, it is about that flexibility and adaptability where we seem to be almost shunning away when we actually need to be pulling that in and doubling down on that.
Yeah. The idea of engagement, I love the hybrid workplace and the coming back to the workplace thing. I think it's been such a clear thing in the last few years as an example of how we haven't thought this through, and the whole evolution of the hybrid workplace because of COVID was a bit of a wake-up call to that. How we'd built all these crazy office spaces and, we'd focused so much on the physical space and the physical experience in terms of, free lunches on Friday and, the pool table in the corner
Yep.
and the bean bags to, because we're all casual and whatever it is, right? So we'd put a lot of money into these amazing offices. But then once we left the offices and were still able to be effective, more effective in some ways, less effective in others, like there are nuances to and advantages to each side for sure. But it sort of opened the eye. I'm like, okay, well, what are we getting out of the office?
Yeah.
And as you articulated, I think our first assumption was incorrect. So people all of a sudden it's like, well, the office isn't the thing that's attracting me to work at the place. It's a pass mark maybe, but I'm not going to get a job there just because they've got a nice office.
Yeah.
Right. And then in terms of how we engage and interact with people at the office, I think there is some value in just being in the same space and the energy of saying, here we are with another 100 people and we're all working towards this same goal, and you feel the presence and energy of the other people. If there is real clarity around what we're all working towards and you actually feel like everyone here is part of the same team.
Yeah.
The thing that I think that we all assume is there that actually takes more effort, particularly as everyone isn't in the office all the time, is these little auxiliary conversations.
Yeah.
So, you'd call it like the water cooler conversation is the classic way to phrase it. But, we all did the Zoom trivia nights or whatever that just everyone's like, what are we doing? You know? And I think that's been the biggest challenges to replicate or that I've seen out there with clients is to go, how do we continue to try and create a sense of belonging and create a link between these different teams and different people and make them feel not just loyalty is maybe the end goal, right? But camaraderie maybe when they're not going to lunch together all the time. Yeah. They're not waiting in the same coffee line. They're not, all singing happy birthday every week for someone, whoever it is, right? Like how do you do these things?
Yeah. I do miss a lot of that office cake, even though at the time, you definitely put on weight, but you go through those stages where, 3 times a week someone's got cake. Yeah. But not to digress too much. But I think it's about intention. Like back to that idea you're talking about messaging, it's about intention. Let's go back to COVID. When we went totally remote, there's a lot of intention around connection. We didn't have a playbook, but we did everything. And hence why a lot of us were burnt out afterwards. We did everything, At the workplace side, there's one team that used to, around the office, do a daily plank. So everyone would get around in the boardroom and do a plank and see how long. And that was one of the rituals I had. So we thought, we're going to do it virtually. Everyone get onto, I think we were using Teams or whatever it was, and we could get however many people. And across APAC, everyone would try to do a plank.
Wow.
And, then you do a cooking show and do this, a trivia, whatever else, but it's all with an intention to create connection.
Yeah.
And now that we've got that opportunity to do this connection, and especially in our workplaces and more physically, we forgot to add the intention to it. It's just like, let's go back to old ways or whatever else it is, and everyone will just follow suit. But it's not old ways. There's nothing old. This is all new. This is a new routine. So let's, forget the old playbook, or we're not even using a playbook right now, I think. It's just everyone's back at the office or whatever it is. And not to harp too much on that, but I think connection is really important. Yes, that, hey, Francis, can you just check this out for me? Am I on the right track? That's really important. Going for lunch is really important to build that connection, but it's done through intention. So as a business, if you're saying that this is part of our culture, drive some intention around it, drive some connection, and not just expect everyone to be in the same space and connect because it's new and that's not what people maybe are great at. So you have to help create that.
And I see that intention, it's about not just broadcasting the intention. So step one is broadcast the intention. Step one is to say, rather than saying everyone has to come back to the office, we have to say, hey, we are trying to achieve this.
Yep.
And we think that coming back to the office is a way that we can do that, right? Yep. So at least people understand the intention for the directive, right? Yeah. And why. I think the next level, which is where you really need to get, is you need to make sure that your team also wants to achieve that why. So it's not just the intention of why we've called the meeting, why we've done the called let's all do a plank, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's all do a plank. What's the intention? The intention is for us to keep connected and engaged and, have a little fun doing something physical, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. That's a top-down sort of message from that. The way that works is that everyone who shows up to do the plank also has that intention.
Yep.
Right? You need your team to want to connect with each other. You need your team to want to have a bit of fun and all that sort of stuff. And then you create that system that we sort of talked about before, which is like we've got the control and the directive in saying we want to go this direction. This is the narrative we want to have. We want to be a connected team. We're going to set some frameworks that we think are going to help you do that. And then we trust you to run it, So I'm already picturing I'm picturing myself doing the plank thing. If that was going well after a couple of weeks, I'd have a headband on in one of them. You know what I mean?
You have fun with it.
You have fun with it, right?
And you break those rules a little bit.
You break those rules, you evolve things, but it's around the same intention of what we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
So that intention needs to be not just commanded from the top. It's something that you need to instill from the beginning, right from hiring and onboarding all the way through. Continuously check in on in your one-on-ones, in your town halls, in the way that you update people, explain, hey, we've got great numbers this quarter because we did this with this intention, which is going to help us with this mission and journey over here. And that was your part of it. Thank you so much. Right. But help people understand how it's all part of the broader story. And so make sure they want to stay in the story.
It's important to connect these stories and what happened and how it happened and what worked and what didn't work. It's that transparency both ways. That's how people feel connected. Sometimes in a lot of people's day-to-day jobs, you see one piece of the pie and you don't see the impact. I worked in a few businesses where there's a big disconnect with the tech team on what they're doing and just achieving what our commercial teams wanted to do. Because sometimes they're unfortunately just looking at a chunk of code and they didn't see why it was so important. When to a customer, this one change was so important, but is a pain in the ass to do. But getting our commercial teams to sort of say, hey, this is why it's so important. And this is why it affects our customers so much. I know it's a pain in the ass. Out of all the cool things we could do to go back and adjust this, I know it may put some of those other cool things on hold, but this is why it's so important. And by understanding that, bringing some of those tech team into those customer conversations, they understood it. And that why filters down. It's not just, an exec saying you have to do this and maybe telling a why to the senior leader, and that message doesn't get filtered down. So suddenly it gets down to the people that are actually doing it or have to do it and just being told you have to do this. Well, why?
So, promotes being siloed. So you need that empathy and that context with every one of your messages and every story that you tell so people understand where they fit in. And, whenever I coach people to talk about introducing themselves, answering the what you do question and all that sort of thing, it's thinking about how you are affecting other people, right? Like why does your specific role exist and what does it help who? It helps who in the organization and what do those people then able to do and how does that filter down to the end customer and the overall mission and all that sort of thing because we're all part of it, like everyone in the organization is empowering everyone else in some way.
Exactly.
And that's where you feel a sense of value. When you have the empathy and context around those areas, you're not just filling the tech ticket because another one came in, off we go, another 2 hours grunt work here, there. You understand what the impact's going to be if you do a good job for that. And sometimes that encourages you not just to fulfill the task, but to think a little bit more creatively and outside the box of actually there might be a better way that we can solve that, a more scalable way that we can solve that, a different way to look at it. And it's making the most of the resources you have in the way that people think, the human resources that we have of all these great minds and different opinions. You get the most out of those when they have context and empathy for everyone else in terms of the way they approach problems.
Exactly. You get that you get a true understanding of what the problem is. And it's not always what people are saying. I was talking to another, people experience leader recently, and he is going through an investment journey. And he was saying that when he was speaking to investors, they're asking, what are you doing to bring people into the office? I said, I've never heard that question. That's an interesting one. And we're just sort of spitballing, and we sort of said, well, actually, the question, what they really want to know is how you're keeping people connected, how you're ensuring everyone's moving in the same direction, and how are we going to move at speed so we can scale. That's what they really want to know.
Yeah.
So it's not about offices is maybe the playbook they know. So there's our chance to educate them, whether it's a customer, investor, or our people, once again on the why, and really understand the problem. And then once again, we can break the rules or flip the script. So what we came up with was that what you're actually trying to find out is, once again, how do we scale? And having this more flexible culture and leaning into adaptability lets us scale. Yes, we are aligned by doing this, this, and this. Yes, we ensure everyone's engaged by doing this, this, and this. Yes, we have connection by doing this, this, and this. But what that allows us is, in this flexible way of working, allows us to go from 10 to 50 to 500 to 1,000 and still make sure the message isn't lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding the right problem, right?
Yeah.
So every time you've got some business problem that you're trying to solve, you're thinking back and going, well, why are we solving that?
Yeah.
Like, is that the root problem? So yeah, people coming into the office, unless you're making money literally from the number of people in the office, right? So I ran a co-working space for a little while.
Yep.
It was important that people came to the office because that's how we made money.
Yep.
So that was relevant, right? But for most businesses, the office is a means to an end.
Yeah.
What is the end we're trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And right now, is this the right means in which to do it?
Yeah.
And I think, and again, coming back to that idea of context and perhaps leadership, is to say, we want to control the direction in saying, look, this is where we want to go. And these are the few, pillars of values and attributes that we think are really important to get us there. One might be connection or something like that. And then allow your people the space to contribute ideas in that area. So I want to talk about leadership with you for a second, that sort of leadership guise.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a very big word, leadership. Sometimes it means direction pointing. This is where we want to end up. But it's all about having people follow you.
Yeah.
What do you think the role is of leaders, permeating through this HR people and culture space? How do they stay engaged and relevant?
Yeah. I think firstly, leadership is not a title. It's not being a manager, it's not being senior, it's an action. An action any one of us can take to be a leader. And a number of actions, once again, let's think of the plural. So firstly, that's a really important part. But also, our most trusted leaders and the ones that we actually rely on and have the most influence need to be given space. They're often the ones that get more KPIs, get promoted to failure. And what I mean by that is you get the next role, or you become a manager and you're not trained to be it, and then you fail. And you go through, one or two failures as a manager until you become a bit better. You're not promoted to success, you're promoted to failure almost. Right. And it's I feel I see it over and over again, and I've been through that journey as well. So leadership engagement for me, really, it's about giving them trust, giving them space, but also making sure that they're not burning themselves out, because they're often the first ones to do that because they actually care the most. They're most empathetic. They actually care about the team. They're most in tune what's happening in the team. So you have to make sure that they've also got time to reflect. And I think that's one of those things, especially in work, we don't have or don't do a lot of. It is go, go, go. And, we love using, those analogies to compare to a sporting team and, direction, everyone kicking the same way. But also every sporting team firstly has an off season. And then also you're training for the game. The game is maybe once a week. But in the lead up to that, you're training at 70, 80%. So you're building up to this crescendo, then coming back down. And part of that training is a recovery phase, a reflection phase, and that's how you improve. So once again, feel like I'm going on 10 different tangents, but I think for leadership, most simply, we need to give them space to succeed, but also space to reflect and double down on looking after them. But also give them the tools. Like, don't promote them to failure. If you want them to manage people and lead people, help them do that.
Yeah. So they need the direction and then the structure as well.
And so we're not repeating the same mistakes that we've all gone through.
Yeah.
And I think in workplaces we do that. Well, I had to do that, and back in my day, we all hear that. Well, we don't have to do that. The purpose of each generation and each iteration is we make it better, whether for our product, whether for our customers, and how we manage our people is exactly the same thing. Each iteration should be better. So let's not make the same mistakes we've all had to experience, and give people a few more tools and guidance and support to lead if that's what we need them to do.
Which is the separation between productivity and time almost. I think that's so often a thing that we push ourselves too hard, we push our leaders too hard, we push our teams too hard, and this is not a new message. But historically, we've gotten stuck in the idea that value comes from time spent on something.
Yeah.
So, if I work 80 hours a week, I have worked harder and would achieve more, where you haven't given yourself the time and the space to reflect and consider whether you're doing the right things at the right time in the right direction, let alone having the energy and focus to really give it 100%.
It's that one of the great indicators of productivity I love using is how many meetings people have. And the less meetings, the better. So many leaders, and I think we've all worked in roles, you look at your manager's calendar and it's just back to back to back to back meetings, and there's 8 in a day or whatever else it is. That is so unproductive. Firstly, how are you supposed to remember anything? When are you supposed to take action on anything? How are you not supposed to jumble all this up and not burn yourself out? And yes, AIs help because it can help take notes and things like that. But at the same time, we're just burning ourselves out. Like, we're breaking ourselves. So, the idea of productivity, firstly, in just work, I think we're shit at measuring it.
Yeah.
And also saying high performance, we want a high performance team, but what does that actually look like? And unless we define what high performance looks like, then we're just throwing words out there, buzzwords or whatever else.
And some of those high performance things that surely we need to be looking at. It's not just revenue through the door. It's not just expenses saved. It is those things that end up being scalable and long-term.
Exactly.
So what processes have we created out of this? How have we built a team that does have a sense of connection, that is going to be around for the long haul? Like, what are the things that we've done that sometimes are a bit intangible, a bit more qualitative, a little bit harder to measure in that sense, but that we think are going to set us up for longer-term, scalable, sustainable success?
Yeah, and it's the thing about, you mentioned trust a few times before, and that's not something soft. That's probably one of the hardest leadership skills to have, but it's also the greatest driver of, whether psychological safety, great outcomes, longevity, loyalty, all these points we sort of made. It all really comes down to trust. So we have to foster that. And that comes down to, consistent messaging, but also living and breathing it. It's one thing to say one thing and do another thing. And once again, how we act internally and externally, it's the same message of trust. If we're doing one thing externally to our customers and our advertising, whatever else it is, but internally we're acting very differently, we know the truth.
Yeah.
And often we go out and say, hey, working there, it's that, and that message gets out.
Exactly.
So it is really important. So I think for me it is, and I think I've probably just lost my train of thought on that one. But no, just really simply, I think it is about, trust is really important, that longevity is important, but it's about making sure that everything communicates in the end, and everything we do does communicate.
Well, and I think that's what builds the trust. To foster trust, you need to be trustworthy. And to be trustworthy, you need to have clearly articulated what the purpose is, why you've hired the people you've hired, what everyone's role is, all of that sort of thing. There needs to be, a level of transparency around that, so that we feel our role in the journey, our role in the narrative, where we want to play, and we're happy with that and we're excited about that. it makes me think, you're talking about like meetings and too many meetings and like I'm the odd one out. I love meetings, right? But that's because like who I am in my role. But the big important element of that is the meeting has to have purpose, context, all that sort of thing, right?
Yep.
Like the word meeting has a stigma around it. And, if you look up meeting in the dictionary, right, there's an image of a whole bunch of people in suits looking really bored, looking at a spreadsheet, right? That's not what a meeting
I've got that
has,
image, right?
right? But that's not what a meeting has to be. In terms of, you could do it at the playground or whatever if you like, right? You could be doing planks at the, but I think also to say that the meeting should be there for a reason. It should be there for us to achieve something together, to come together and do something meaningful, make a meaningful decision or update each other on where we're going with things. And again, it comes back to that two-way street. It's important from a management and leadership perspective that every meeting / every task, every setup is done with intention. There's a purpose behind it. We're trying to achieve something, and not just the title of the meeting, but the intention of the meeting is well communicated so that when people front up, they're doing so knowing that it's going to have some positive impact for the broader journey of the business. The flip side of that is people need to front up with that intention too. So I always put out to people when I have conversations around and they're struggling with teams and things like that. And, maybe there's meetings that they're frustrated about. I'm like, well, have you said anything? Like, are you clear what the purpose of that meeting? Are you clear of the intention of the meeting? If you're not, great, ask, right? If you are clear of the intention of the meeting, but you still are frustrated fronting up for it, well, that's an interesting thing to explore. Do you not think that intention is a worthwhile intention? Or do you not think the meeting is the best way to achieve that? If so, what are your other ideas? But it's encouraging that sort of how can we best do this together?
I love that. And it's that encouraging that critical thinking. I talked about flexibility and adaptability as being key muscles, but critical thinking is key, especially in today's world. You think everything generative AI and, here we go down the AI path, but we love using it. Everyone uses it. But at the same time, generative AI and what we're using at the moment, really it's just a large prediction engine. It just predicts the most likely next word. And with billions and trillions or whatever it is of data sets, that next word is, it creates those sentences, stories, that information we need. But it's not actually smart. It's not smart in the true sense. So that critical thinking is what's actually important. And yes, I know I've gone down the AI tangent, but especially in meetings or whatever we do, it's questioning, why are we doing this? What's the intention? What do we hope to get as an outcome from this? And if we keep thinking like that, then we get better at, is there a better way of doing this? Or maybe I'm not aligned with this. How can we bring it back together so we don't feel like, or some of us don't feel like we're wasting our time, but we're actually getting some great outcomes and maybe questioning those outcomes to say, this is okay, but why aren't we thinking about this? Or how did we come up with that? Why it's not just this is the way it's always been done, but why is that always been done? And then we start once again breaking some of those rules and, fourth walls or whatever we want to go down that path, breaking some of the rules that we probably haven't and creating something better.
And where that takes me to is the value. If you have everyone coming in with the same intention and you have articulated well why we're here and what we're trying to do and empowered people, given them the trust that, hey, we want to know how you think you can best contribute. That for me gets to the essence of where I see the value of like diversity, equity, and inclusion these days, and where we're talking about those sort of things. So I know you've been working, you're doing some stuff with REA in that sense, and then Grapevine, of course, as well. And you mentioned earlier that the hollowness with how diversity quotas are sometimes spoken about. And I think it's such an important story to tell when, at least for the way I see it, when we're talking about the ethos behind diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's not the fact that the workplace is diverse. It's acknowledging, understanding, and embracing and trying to build the idea that the more diverse, equitable, and inclusive our workplace is, the broader points of views we're going to attract. And the broader ideas we'll have, the more creative we'll be, the more unique we'll be, the quicker we'll grow.
Exactly. And we don't make those same mistakes over and over again because we've all come from a similar experience, background, whatever else it is. And I think if we even break it down to pure dollars and cents, as a business, we want to best represent our customer. And if we can't represent them, we're trying to dictate to them instead of being alongside them to say, hey, this is what's best for us, not instead of this is what I think is best for you. But also, once again, we think about experiences and customer experiences when it comes to supporting those customers. It's not just selling once, it's about supporting them and bringing them along that journey to buy again, keep engaged with our solution or product, or whatever it is. It's important we engage. And sometimes it's engaging in local language or just understanding different backgrounds, whether it's something as simple as Eastern or Western cultures. All these things make a difference. And if you look at the makeup of society, in Australia and Melbourne in particular, we're quite lucky to be quite multicultural. Why shouldn't we not embrace that? We love embracing food, especially here, and the joys of different cultures and what that brings. Just, food is one part of this whole inclusive piece. But imagine how much more we can get out of just life by embracing so much more. And once again, back to if it's purely dollars and cents, by better connecting with our customer, and better representing them.
But I think those overlaps are really important, right?
Yeah.
So simple top of the page, marketing customer personas. We're going to go, okay, my target audience, I'm aiming at mid-40s, white males in something. But that, when you delve into it, is a really diverse group in terms of how they engage with, we're all multicultural these days.
Yep.
Everyone is engaging with different cultures all the time and demands that of the companies that they buy from and the companies that they work for.
Yeah.
I think there is a real importance behind that. And it's not, it goes beyond respect and into curiosity and trying to, again, foster that sort of connection and empathy. I think that just has to be the way forward for any organization and particularly for small businesses too. You look at these 10,000 global multinationals and, okay, now you've got quotas of 51% this week. Okay, well, I mean, at least you've got some numbers to work with.
Yeah.
Right? When you're a small business and there are 10 people, I'm not going to be like, well, are we 50% female? I mean, I don't, sometimes you just have to hire the person who's in front of you.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean that you can't promote a culture that is open and inclusive and conscious and aware of these sort of things. I think it's really important that you bring that in from outside and things as well.
Exactly.
Whenever we have a problem personally, we talk to a friend, we talk to a family member that we trust and we try to get another opinion.
Yep.
Right? It's the same thing in the workplace.
It is.
And asking other businesses, asking other people, being open, trying to share is a way that we can get past that.
And, in the most simplest form, our workplaces are relationships. It is a relationship. And every relationship only succeeds through empathy and compassion. It's not to say, this is me and this is you, and we just clash heads and hopefully, these puzzle pieces that we jam together and they fit. We're people. We can flex. So we can create almost the puzzle piece to make it fit the way we want it to and the way we need it to, and take the best of each other. Once again, we bring people into our businesses because we trust them. We know that they can achieve what we hope that we want to achieve, or we bring them in to do that, to do a task or do a job. But then unless they can be themselves to do that, they're not going to do that. They're going to be half themselves or give a part of themselves. So if you want that, that idea of that whole self to work, and, there's flaws in that. I'm not saying you have to bring your whole self, because that's not right for everyone. But it is really important that we recognize there's differences, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
We've always been great as a society generally at doing that, and we're getting better and better. And yes, I know there's a lot of binary views and a lot of what's on media sometimes pushes some things a different way, but this is a journey, and the journey we take together. The only way we take it together is bringing people in. We pull our customers in, we need to pull our people in. It's not a pull and a push somewhere. And, it's that conversation, once again, messaging, the idea, we can do a pitch, and that's once again a push, that whole idea of elevator pitch, bang, this is why, you need to do this with me. But what's actually more effective is the idea of that, what I call a barbecue conversation. It's that, you go to a barbecue or a dinner party and there's that one person, what do you do? Or tell me a bit about yourself. And they just pull people in. They've got so much energy, so much passion for what they do. And you're like, oh, I've got to invite Francis over for dinner. I want to be one of Francis's mates. That's really cool. So, we're all got a purpose, but if we create some intention around that purpose and make sure that we are being empathetic, not just in what we're sending out, but also listening, we achieve much more. And we do it together, and we do it probably a lot happier and a lot more engaged, and we enjoy what we do versus, once again, we got there, but we hit our head against a wall and I'm burnt out and I never want to do that again.
Yeah, I think it's being active in that space. That's what sort of I heard from that. Like don't just passively wait for people to inspire you and for your management and leadership to give you that inspiration, and like ask for it, look for it, listen for it, be active about it and try and drive it yourself. So if you're at a barbecue and someone asks you what do you do and you try and avoid the conversation.
Yeah.
Notice that. Be like, hey, apparently I hate talking about work.
Yeah.
What's the go with that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And we're not saying the job doesn't need to be sexy, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that it's something that you're actually interested in, that you think has meaning for society.
Yeah.
Search for that in your role.
Yeah.
Search for that as a leader for your teams. Get on the same page, start to find the same words and ways to articulate it.
Yeah.
Create content about it. Like put something that's going to sit on the wall, put something in the, do a little video together, do whatever it's going to be that solidifies that together as like, this is what we're here, this is what we've done, and this is what it means.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have all of those people that, that one barbecue conversation times 10 for that team, times 100 teams, times, and this thing just explodes and explodes. And the brand and reputation that you're building for your business, not just as an employer brand, but for all the customers that you're trying to bring in as well. Because every one of those people is going to interact with customers some way, somehow, right?
That's right.
Like it just gets so much stronger and so much more powerful. And then it does get a bit of a life, an identity of its own. And people are proud. You get this pride of being part of it, and those experiences that you're talking about get so much more impactful.
Yeah. And it's that piece about, that impactful experiences. And as leaders in the workplace, we have to repeat that message over and over again until it starts to sink in. So if we're not passionate about it, we don't believe in it, we don't enjoy saying it, it's never going to translate. And we're not going to repeat it in multiple ways, multiple forms. And that's what we got to do. When we're selling to our customers, we're telling the value of what we're putting out there to pull people in. And we're doing that in different ways. Same thing in our messaging, whether it's internally, externally. It's really important that we believe in what we're saying. We enjoy saying it, and that takes practice. It does. At that point, you sort of said, take that moment to reflect. Why can't I say this? I feel awkward, but I just got to build that muscle. It's building that muscle, and it takes practice. And sometimes, whether it's exercise or going for a run, the first few times you hate it. You hate it, but sometimes after a while and being persistent, something clicks, and then it's just
courage, bravery, and again, that word that we're coming back to is intention.
Yeah.
So even if it's hard, if you believe in the intention and you believe, you're like, look, I really want to find joy in the work that I do, then you need to actively search for it.
Yeah.
Actively find those things that bring you joy in work. Explore the other opportunities in your role and other things that you can take on that bring other people with you. I guarantee part of it's going to be connection.
Yep.
Right. So you need other people to be present in that joy and reflecting on that with you. But you can be out there, take some ownership of it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And, lean into our humanity as people. It's okay to say, this is why this is so important to me. We're still working it out. And I don't doubt we're going to make some mistakes, but this is what we're going to do. And this is why we need to do it together.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, we'll try our plan B. Yeah. But we need to try, and we need to try together. Yeah. And that's when you bring people on board. And when you stuff it up, let's be transparent. Hey, we tried this, it didn't work. And this is why we feel it didn't work, because of this, this, and this. What are your thoughts on that? Let's come up with a solution so we don't make the same mistakes again and create that replicability on the right things.
Yeah. Okay, Deepak. So lastly, how can people How can people work with you in this sort of space? What sort of support can you give them?
So I think from a personal point of view, what I do with Mission and Rhythm is helping businesses turn their people strategies into something of action. So if you do need someone in that people space, I'm always happy to chat or try to point. And, I think conversation is really important. So it's not about, once again, a sell or anything like that. It's just about bouncing ideas.
Yeah.
That PeopleStack piece is a great one, especially if you're an early stage team that is scaling. How do you build your minimal viable people function and make sure your operations don't get to a breaking point?
Which I think is really hard. People skip this a lot, right? Like you hire the HR person reactively when you start having HR disasters.
Yeah.
And good people and it is so easy and fun to build a great culture from the start. It is so hard and confronting to try and like reshape a culture that is, that has gone down the toilet, right? So starting early is really important.
And that, it's when you're 10 people around a desk or a table, it's easy to spitball and work things out, and people are already on the journey of why, and they understand that. But when you're 50 people and they haven't seen those early stages, or that communication goes through 2 or 3 layers, it's a bit harder. And I think what I try to do is saying, very clearly, in early stage business, it's all well and good to say, yes, you need a chief people officer or this or whatever else. And most of the time you don't. You just need the right expertise at the right times, but also you need also the right skills. Once again, we're talking about messaging, communication, intention, and experiences. This is all about, once again, that point about intention. We got to try and do the right things in the right way and do what's replicable. So we're not waiting for things to break.
Yeah.
And that's really important. And then I think, like I said, the work I do with the Grapevine is voluntary work, but what's really important about that is about voice. And I also fully recognize, especially in tech early stage business, most business, things aren't always great, especially if you're underrepresented, whether you're, a woman, person of color, older, younger, whatever, demographics, the more differences, the harder it is. I fully recognize that. And, as a person of color, I feel that as well at times. Yes, I've come from a very privileged background. I'm not going to pretend I haven't. But at the same time, I think it's important that whatever we do, we give people a voice and make sure that we're willing to listen and hopefully amplify.
Yeah, I love that sentiment, right? Like the idea of making space, giving people a voice, acting with intention, and really striving towards this concept of experience, both what our personal experience is at work, taking some ownership over taking control of our own personal experience in work and finding joy in that, and being really mindful and respectful for how we can help others in our team, in our business, and our customers have really great experiences as well.
Yeah, agreed. Like, that point of intention, I know we've said it about 5 times each. That's probably the core to it. But what you just said, that accountability.
Yeah.
Intention's great, but we've got to own it.
Yeah.
When things go right, yes, but also when they go wrong. And that's hopefully how we scale things and scale us to something better.
Fantastic, mate. Well, thanks so much for joining us on the Stack podcast today. It's been great talking with you. Deepak Singh, everyone. We'll leave some contact details in the show notes, of course, but speak to you again soon, my friend.
Cheers. Thanks so much. Amazing.